Oh, hello. My name is Mara and welcome to Books Like Whoa. Hey party people, it is time for my first mid-month check-in for the year of our Lord 2020. So we're going to talk about how my reading month has been going so far, things that I've finished, what I'm reading right now, what I think I might read next, and it has been an amazing reading month so far. So context here is that in 2020, I've been making some changes to help with my anxiety management long-term, but part of making that transition is some specific coping skills, and one of my best coping skills in those kinds of like transitional periods for me is to read just all the time, or really it's more just to be busy all the time. It's not good for me to just sort of like be chillin'. Pretty much any time that I have found myself at loose ends for a few moments instead of like checking my phone or just sort of vegging, I have been very focusedly either doing something, like I've been reorganizing basically my entire house and listening to audiobooks, or I've been physically reading. So I have gotten so much reading done. I'm filming this a little later in the month than I normally would, but I have basically read a book a day so far this month. So I am filming on the 18th, and so far I have read 19 books this month. So a lot of those are lighter kind of like filler kind of books, so not as many chunky or like more substantial books, but you know, that's still a lot. And like I said, it's just been a really high quality reading month. I already have a 5-star and a 4.5 star, which that's a great way to kick off your year. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but mostly I want to make sure I cover in this video some books that I don't think will make my end of the month wrap up. So I'll just mention some of the like big hits or disappointments in passing, and then we'll keep it moving. I should also mention that another long-term anxiety management strategy that I have is that I have decided I'm getting kittens, and I have applied for the brother and sister that I want, and I am anxiously waiting that this weekend for them to review and accept me. And if they don't pick me, I'm gonna have to like stalk whoever gets them and steal them, because these babies are meant to be mine. So anyway, you may be seeing more about that at the end of the month, fingers crossed. But side note, so let's talk about what I've already read so far. 3 things that I've already read so far that are hits, and I will talk more about at the end of the month. The first is I did get an ARC for Come Tumbling Down by Seanan McGuire, so I read that before the physical book arrived for me, and I really like this one, and it sort of restored my faith that I like these books. Not my favorite in the series, but I just fucking love Jack so much. And I think what was clarifying in this book is like, for the series, I should focus on reading the ones where it's characters I know and love, because this book had literally all of my favorite characters going on an adventure together, and it worked for me. So I'll talk more about that at the end of the month, but 4 stars, really enjoyed this one. 4.5 stars to Undercover Bromance by Lyssa K. Adams, which is coming out in March. This book gave me so much life. This was the first book I read in 2020, and I was like, this is the note that I want to start the year on. I couldn't quite get to 5 stars on it because there are a couple of pacing issues, but let me just tell you, patriarchy, who is she? We don't know her. This book is just like, fuck you, patriarchy. Fuck you, all of these like misogynistic ass conventions in this type of book. It is meta. I love the characters. There are people out there, I'm telling you right now, there are people out there who are not gonna like the heroine. I actually looked at the reviews and some of them already are complaining about that. I see it, but I'm not here for it. And we will get into why at the end of the month. But basically, this book was such a great note to start the year off on. I loved it. So 4.5 stars there. And then 5 stars to Jane Doe by Victoria Helen Stone, which is sort of I mean, I put it on my prediction list for possible 5-star books as sort of like a wild card. But when I tell you that this book gave me the same vibes as Undercover Bromance, but like none of the problems I had with Undercover Bromance in terms of female rage, channeled, directed, so good. It's a mystery-ish, but really it's just sort of like general fiction with like a mystery plot engine on it. It was amazing. So I will talk about all 3 of those more at the end of the month, but they all were big hits for me. Just getting me like revved up for 2020, ready to like kick ass and take names. All 3 of these books just have me like energized and ready to go. Okay, so some other things that I liked, but just I don't think will probably make my end of the month list, at least as hits. I might talk about them as surprises, we'll see. But first of all, your girl got an audio arc of Golden in Death by J.D. Robb, and I finished it this morning. That's what I spent my morning doing while I was doing some cleaning so that I could tell you in this video that I have finished it. And let me tell you, I feel so excited to be fully fully caught up, and it was really good. Now, I was a little let down because I was hoping, since it was the 50th book, and because the word golden, it's golden in death, and golden was in the title, so I was hoping there was going to be some sort of like big milestone moment in the series with the characters in this one, which is not really the vibe on it. I was personally just a little sad about that. I would have enjoyed having that element as a part of the book, but it was a super solid mystery, and now that I've finished it, I'm going to spend some time finishing up my notes so that I can make my big series review, wrap up, and a review of that book as well. But I'm just so excited to have been caught up. I really appreciate the folks at Macmillan Audio for giving me the chance to listen to it early. Yeah, it's just real good. I am fully caught up on In Death now, because I also spent some time this month reading the last novellas that I had to read. All of them were like 150 to 200-ish pages, so sort of like novellas into short novels. And actually, I really enjoyed all three of those. It was Chaos in Death, Wonderment in Death, and Taken in Death. And I gave all of them either 3.5 or 4 stars. Like, they were really good novellas. She does seem to be very fixated. I mentioned this in my December wrap up. In these novellas, she really likes to have some sort of supernatural or preternatural element that's either actually there or is insinuated to be there. I don't know why that's such a big thing for her in these shorter novels, but I thought that all three of these were much better examples of using that element in a way that works with sort of the underlying kind of vibe of the series. So I was more into it this time around, and I thought they were all really good novellas. But between that and Golden in Death, I am now 100% caught up on the In Death series. So look for a series review from me soon. I'm going to keep it spoiler free in the sense of I'm not going to get into like, and then in this book, this was the person who did it. I'm going to really be talking about like thematically, I think, what's happening in these books, talk about some of the interesting kind of world building pieces of it and sort of what it suggests about her vision of the future, etc., etc. So I'm excited for that. And I think I've not processed that I don't have just another one I can go grab. It makes me feel like maybe I'm going to start rereading some of my favorite ones back in the series, because it's been long enough now. There's so many of these books that I'm not going to remember every single sort of like beat of the plot. The road was long and winding, and it has come to an end. But not really, because there'll be a new one in September, but you take my meaning. I'm fully caught up. Oh, and actually, sorry, I should have mentioned also this as a hit. This is going to be in my end of the month wrap up. I gave this 4 stars, Assassin's Apprentice. I really enjoyed it. I've been vlogging this for a thing that will come later, so I'm going to give full thoughts there or at the end of the month. But I did end up really enjoying this. This has a very like nostalgic kind of vibe to it that I am way into. It's very character driven, which tends to be how I like my fantasy. And I think she has a really nice writing style. I bet I read this with my friend Leanna, and I was telling her, this reminds me sort of the vibes I got from Tamora Pierce when I was reading her back in the 90s. So yeah, I did really enjoy this, but I'll talk more about that later. So that was also a hit. Something I probably won't talk about more is The Wallflower Wager by Tessa Dare. I gave this either 3.5 or 4. I think I gave this 4 stars. I did really enjoy this. Tessa Dare, I think, writes some of the best romantic comedies out there in any medium or like subgenre. So these are historical, they're Regencies, but I think that the romantic comedy plotting of these is just about as good as what you're going to get in any movie or any contemporary. They just have this lovely light touch to them. This one in particular is fun. So the premise of it is that the gal is basically a spinster, but she is a lady. She's the daughter of an earl. She's a spinster because she was very socially awkward basically during her coming out season. And she's also like just a big gooey marshmallow for animals. So she collects handicapped animals in her townhouse in London and takes care of them. And the rake who moves in next door, he's basically flipping the townhouse he bought. So he's like having it fully modernized. And part of the appeal of when he flips it is that it's next door to a lady, and she being threatened by her family basically of like, if you're not going to get married, you have to come back to the country. And she really doesn't want to do that. So they sort of team up to help her kind of like come out of her shell and show that she's still trying to get married. And I know you're going to be shocked to hear this, but they fall in love in the process. So I just thought that this had some really lovely, just very nice banter between the characters, which is something Tessa Dare is very good at. There's this beautiful bit about this goat who may or may not be pregnant, and they're talking about whether or not she's that kind of girl. Like, it's very cute. I will say the thing that kept me from just like loving this is that the internal conflicts, like some of the emotional conflict, I felt like was really heavy, and I think came into the book too late for it to feel like it struck quite the right tone. I think she was very respectful because this is basically like some content content warning for child abuse and, you know, grooming and stuff like that. So it's like heavy stuff. And it comes in kind of later in the book. And I pretty much like how that was handled once it was introduced, but I just felt like it came in so late that it wasn't quite the right tone, I felt like. Anyway, by the time these two get together, I really feel like you feel like they've earned it. You feel like they really belong together. This is the third book in a quartet of books, which I think is called Girl Meets Duke, and I'm really excited for the last one. I've enjoyed all three of them. My favorite still unquestionably is the Duchess deal, which is the first one, and it's one of the best books that she's ever written, I think. But this, I think, was also a really strong entry and one that I definitely liked better than the second book. So this was fun. What else have I been reading before we move into what I'm reading right now? Oh, so I've been binge listening to the Fated Mates podcast. If I've not been listening to an audiobook, I've been listening to that podcast and a couple of other romance podcasts just because it really got me in the mood. And also just some things that are going on right now in Romancelandia, which we will talk more about in a subsequent video. But I've been really enjoying that podcast, and there's always a bunch of recommendations. So I've been reading a lot of like kind of smaller contemporary romances based on their recommendations. So I'll probably like get a list of those, compile them. We'll talk about those as like a surprise category in my end of the month wrap up, because I've not fully loved any of them, but they do a good job of making recommendations of books that have like something a little different about them. And I appreciate that. Even if it doesn't end up fully working for me, all of them have had something a little bit special or different about them. So that's been cool. And then speaking of the Fated Mates podcast, the other thing is that I did read Kiss of a Demon King by Kresley Cole, which is on my like to-do list for this year as I'm trying to catch up with the Immortals After Dark series, because I have almost all of them. So I'm like, I should either read them or just get them off my TBR. I will say, so I'm also including that as a part of a reading vlog project. So at some point you will get like very full thoughts on all of these books. This one in particular, I had conflicting feelings about. It was basically like, should I give this a 2-star or a 4-star? Like, I don't know what to do. I think I landed on like a 3.5. It's doing some interesting things, but it is dark in a way that I just don't know I love. Like, I just don't think it's maybe the book for me. However, I see now why I stalled out in the series where I did, because I stalled out at the book prior to this, which I just really did not enjoy in a lot of ways. I think I gave that one like 2 stars. And I think if I had forced myself to keep going with the subsequent book that I just read, Kiss of a Demon King, I think I would have been able to keep my momentum in the series. But as it is, I just sort of stalled out there. And a lot of the things that I didn't like about that book do get addressed in Kiss of a Demon King, so I appreciated that. I'm intrigued now to keep going. I had already read Untouchable, which was the one after Kiss of a Demon King, so I think the one I'm reading next is Pleasure of a Dark Prince. That sounds right. And I think it has a Valkyrie heroine and a hero, which is a good combo for me. So I'm hoping that now that I've kind of gotten over that hump with the demons, now we're going to be back in like the types of character conflicts I really like in this series. Feeling hopeful about that and glad to have kind of restarted the project of catching up with that series. Oh yeah, and then the last thing that I read that I enjoyed, but I gave it 3.5 stars because it wasn't quite for me, and that was To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. This is a novella from her, and it's the first Becky Chambers book that I've ever read. I do have The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet on my TBR, and I do still plan on reading that. I will say that the writing in this was beautiful, like wonderful prose. I really enjoyed that piece, and I did end up getting really into the character bit of it. I think this book, I don't know. First of all, it was very sciencey, and I don't mean that in the sense of like, I don't like science. I mean it in the sense of the same way I would say sometimes in a fantasy world, when they get overly into all the details of the magic, I start to get a little like, ugh, okay, let's move on. It was beautifully written, but it gave me that same kind of feeling or instinct of like, too much in the world building. Like, get me back to these characters. That's who I'm into, or like, give me more into the plot. So there was that. And then I do think that this is helping me clarify that I don't know that I love a space exploration trope in sci-fi. Yeah, I don't know. It's real sad. It makes me feel very small and alone. And you know, when I'm detoxing from anxiety, that's not my favorite feeling. So I think that I can see why this book has gotten so much praise. And it does make me intrigued to try a full book from her, especially one that I gather that is not as sort of like philosophical or meandering. So I'm interested to try more from her. But this particular book was like good, but not my favorite. So I gave it 3.5 stars and would recommend it. It just, I don't think was quite the book for me. So I'm intrigued to see how I do with her with a different book in the future, but that one wasn't like my fave. Okay, and then in terms of what I'm currently reading, I just finished Golden in Death, which was my big project. I'm also about, like, I think I'm halfway through Upright Women Wanted by Sarah Gailey, which is an arc that Tor.com gave me, so I appreciate that. It's really fun. It's like really interesting. It's basically dystopia Western with lesbian librarians kicking ass and taking names. So it's very high concept. I'm kind of curious to see how it's all going to come together as a novella at this point. Like, there's not a lot of page count in it, but so far it's really fun. So I'm feeling hopeful that that one will end up being at least like a 3.5 or a 4-star kind of book. Like, I'm having a good time in it. So I'm reading that currently. And then what I'm going to read next. Let's see what all I'm going to read next. Okay, so Wicked Fox is on my Get Shit Done TBR, that challenge. And I will tell you that we are going to be having a live show to wrap up that readathon on the 1st of February. I think it's going to be on my channel, so keep your eyes open for more info, but we'll do a little live show with my fellow co-hosts. So this is on my TBR as a book from a subscription box that I need to read. So there's that one. I'm going to show you this. I'm not going to talk about it, and I don't want to talk about it with anyone. I'm just going to tell you it is on my TBR, and we'll move on. MISTBORN by Brandon Sanderson. Okay. Moving swiftly onwards. Another one on my TBR is The Life Brigade by Kameron Hurley. This is a sci-fi military space battle kind of thing. So I don't know. I'm curious to see how I do with it. I really like her whenever I've heard her talk, but I've never tried a book from her before. So we'll see how that goes. Oh, actually, sorry. Again, not organizing my books well here. I am also in progress on Diving Bells by Lucy Wood, which is a collection of short stories that are sort of based on fairy tales or like magical realism-y kind of things. And this was a book that was on my 20 books I want to read in 2020 list. And yeah, I've been trying to like get myself back in the groove with short stories. So this has been what I have been picking up when I don't feel like doing like a novella or a short novel, but I just want to read like something for, 20 or 30 minutes. I've been getting through that and liking. I'm not loving it, but I am really liking it. So that's also in progress. 2 other ones from the Get Shit Done readathon. One is Loving from Henry Green. So this will address the challenge of the book that has been on my shelf the longest, a classic I've been meaning to get to, and a book I started but put down. So I definitely am planning on getting to that one this month. It's also on my classics TBR for the year. So this is just like this is checking a lot of boxes for me. So I will definitely get to that one. And then I'm going to do my best to get to Something That May Shock and Discredit You by Daniel Mallory Ortberg. This is an arc for a book that comes out on February 11th. So I tried to read the arcs that I have for the next month and the previous month. So I would like to get to this in January, but if it doesn't quite happen, the challenge it was addressing was a book that I received for review or as a gift, and I've already read a few books that I had as review copies, so I don't need it for my challenge, so this may end up getting pushed to the beginning of February, but in theory, this is one I'm going to get to. The other arc that I need to get to this month is A Heart of Blood and Ashes by Mila Vane, and actually I say that, maybe that will be my book this weekend. I don't know. I love Mila Vane's work as Mel Jean Brooke, and I've also really enjoyed the previous fantasy romance that I read from her, which was a novella in a collection called Night Shift back in the day. So I'm really excited for this. I think that I'm really going to enjoy it, but I just need to like get in the right mood for it. So that comes out on February 4th, so I would like to read it in January. What else? I've already read 19 books this month, guys. Like, I've been making progress, so this is big, but like, while I probably won't get to every single one of these, I'm probably gonna get to a lot of them because I've just been kicking ass volume-wise. Let's see, what else do I have? Oh yeah, so my next audiobook is supposed to be Fall by Neil Stevenson. I don't know if that's gonna happen this month. That might have been a little ambitious for me. We'll see. I haven't totally picked my next audiobook, but the only other thing, I have 2 other things that are like officially on my TBR already. One is Ninja at First Sight by Penny Reed, because I am trying to finish off the Knitting in the City series and then the Winston Brothers series from her this year. So the next one I have to read is Ninja at First Sight, which is a short novel, so shouldn't be too hard to get through. And then The Suffragette Scandal by Courtney Milan, because this is the last in the Brothers Sinister series that's going, which I've been meaning to finish for forever, but I've been sort of saving it for a special moment, and that moment is now. If you've been following me on Twitter, you know that I've been very vocal and engaged with the meltdown of the RWA. I am going to be starting a couple of challenges in response to that and talking about everything that's gone down with that. I thought about filming that today, but frankly, news keeps breaking almost every day, and that video is not going to go up until February, so I'm going to wait and film it a little later. But a part of that video and a part of what I am doing in response is picking a key book each month to read read, and I'll be hosting some read-alongs along with that. This month, we're not going to do a read-along. I'm just going to be reading the Suffragette Scandal sort of in solidarity, and just because I've been dying to read this, so this will be a treat for me to finally get to finish that up. So that is plenty to be getting on with when I look at this little stack over here. And actually we're gonna add one more because reading is sexy. The mug is back. So what I was doing last year was I put all of last year was 19 books I want to read in 2019. This year it's the 20 books I want to read in 2020. Put them all in the mug, and then I would pick 3 out and pick 1 to put on my TBR for the month. And I'm gonna still do that this year. I think what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to go ahead and pick that's in the mug prior to when we get to this mid-month check-in, and then pick 1 for the back half of the month. So I'm hoping that will help keep me making more momentum and not have so many bunch up at the end of the year and need to get to them quickly. So let's see which one I pick. So I'm gonna pick 3 and then we'll put 1 on my TBR. Okay, first one is The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco. Kind of a chunky book. I think given how much time we have left of the month, that's probably not gonna be the best choice. Okay, the next one is The Witch Elm by Tana French. It's another very chunky book. Okay, so we're gonna need, both of those are kind of mysteries, literary mysteries, so okay. I'm gonna need something a little lighter. Let's see what we get here. Johannes Cabal and the Fear Institute by Jonathan L. Howard. Okay, well, that's interesting. An interesting turn of events here. So I'm definitely gonna eliminate Name of the Rose for now because I really want to like spend some time focusing on that. I am tempted to pick The Witch Elm by Tana French because I am about 60 to 70% sure that I'm going to DNF this, which is part of why I put it on the list of like, just go ahead and see what you're going to do with it. But on the off chance that I do end up really liking it, this is a big, long, this is like a 600-page book. So we're going to pick something fun and fantastical, and that is Johannes Cabal and the Fear Institute, which actually, do I have? Haha, I do. Okay, yeah. Here we go, right here. So Johannes Cabal, the Fear Institute is going to be on my TBR. We'll add that into the mix. Sure. Why not? I've got how many books here? I've got 13 days left in the month and I have 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13 books on my TBR. Okay, well, you know, I guess I need to get cracking on that and figure out, I think I'm officially gonna say fall as my audiobook is not gonna happen and I will sub in a different audiobook to help me get through things. Let's pick that as our strategy. But I'm not sure that that will work either, so I don't know. Wish me luck on this is basically the bottom line. Okay, friends, that will do it for my mid-month check-in. Hopefully when we talk at the end of the month, I will have my babies and I can show them to you, but we will see. We'll see if they will pick me to be their mom, but I am ready. And I'm hoping I get to show them to you at the end of the month. But regardless, let me know how your reading month has gone so far, what you've been loving, what you've been hating, how 2020 is going so far, etc. Let me know that in the comments below. And yeah, I think that that will do it for now. So if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all that information listed in the description box below. And I think that that will do it. I hope you are having an absolutely lovely day, and I will just talk to you soon. Bye.